2 bomb attacks. It looks like at least one was a suicide attack at a nearby hotel used by Westerners who were on the ground, and then, of course, one at the Abbey gate.
This is very typical ISIS here.
Yeah, that's what I was getting to. So this is ISIS.
This is not a Taliban move. I don't think at this point.
The Taliban has said they denounced these moves. This was also as much an attack on the U.S. It was also an attack on the Taliban's legitimacy, which is they're putting into question. See, they looked all tough with these airport barriers, but they weren't able to protect it.
The Taliban has an agreement with Al-Qaeda and with ISIS to allow them safe haven in Afghanistan, as long as they didn't try to interfere with what was happening in Afghanistan. When it came to outside of Afghanistan, the agreement was that Al-Qaeda and ISIS get to do what they want, and the Taliban would not dictate what they do outside of Afghanistan. Either that agreement is broken down with this attack, or the Taliban signed off on an attack. And either way, I think this spells a disaster for the country. It's going to spiral out of control. We will wait to see if this means more terrorist on terrorist and Pashtun on Pashtun violence within Afghanistan, spiraling into a civil war again.
We're just getting a warning now on the ground that ISIS has got hundreds of fighters in the area and to expect similar attacks.
This is a situation, though, that is the chaos and the consequences of a poorly planned withdrawal. Yeah. And it's now at a critical point. And I think Rick is right. He alluded to the fact that business as usual at the Pentagon and the State Department is over. It is not business as usual anymore.
The goal is still to get every American out of there, and then to get your allies out of there too. I mean, that would be the ideal situation. But you've been in these situations. You've got a crisis now that's not folding out as scripted.
Right.
Now, they were talking about they were developing contingency plans in the last couple of days. What does this do to that?
Where I'm concerned now with this new information coming in, the Biden team is not adjusting. Yeah. They need to be able to take the reality of the situation, not the white paper that Jake Sullivan has written,
right, and
stick to the script. He's very academic. He's one-dimensional. He's not understanding that there are a whole bunch of other dimensions that fly in the face of what he planned on his white paper.
The military is trained that when the situation changes on the ground, you adjust. You adjust the orders, the operations, in order to respond to changing events on the ground. That's what should be happening now, because what we're going to have to do is we can't allow the Taliban to hold us to the August 31st date if our mission of getting out of Afghanistan is not complete.
Either stick with August 31st, ignore this and kind of move along, or then send in more troops and potentially continue this conflict. I mean, is that the two options available?
If I were the President of the United States, if I were advising the President of the United States, I would say to the Secretary of Defense, go get the Americans, do whatever you have to do. Yes. I don't care what you have to do.
Right.
You have to bring them home. And so don't be tied down to, not utilizing enough or too much or some sort of, rules within Afghanistan placed upon you by the Taliban or the government of Afghanistan. Get our people home and then let's get out.
To be clear, this is not the Taliban. This is ISIS-K, so the ISIS group that's in Afghanistan. They've only been operating there for about 6 years. They are trying to seize on this, of course, chaos at now one location, because we don't have multiple locations. Right. We have one location where U.S. troops are and U.S. allies are and Afghan people are and American citizens are. And the reports are to expect this type of attack to continue in Kabul.
We cannot leave Americans behind. I don't like leaving these Afghan translators that work with us behind either. I think we're setting them up for a fiasco. And Rick, we're dealing, and we only got a minute here, we're dealing with ISIS, and we know, we have seen it with our own eyes, how brutal ISIS can be on Americans. I'm talking about horrible things like beheadings, folks. I'm not saying that for glory, but this is what they do. And that's what I'm concerned about here. We've got to figure this out.